Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 41, Daniel the Wedding Specialist. What could that title mean? Well, part of it, the specialist part, has to do with the topic that we begin the podcast with, which is a quick discussion about generalists and specialists, what those two different terms mean, and what those mentalities might mean for our society if we go in one direction or the other. And then the remainder of the podcast we spend talking about Daniel's multiple major life events that have happened in the last month and a half or so. He's not only moved to a new state, but he got a totally new job, and perhaps the biggest thing is he got married. We had not even mentioned on this podcast that he had gotten engaged. We didn't even get to talk about that before he got married. So we talk about his wedding, which I participated in as a groomsman, not as, a main member. But we talk about his wedding, what was good about it, what was bad about it, and, the fun parts and planning and all of that sort of thing. So hopefully you'll find that entertaining, and we will go ahead and let the episode begin. Enjoy.
Bennett is having a podcast, and so am I, and we call it
The Third Space
Third
Podcast.
Space Podcast.
With Daniel.
And Bennett.
On the
Third Space
Podcast.
This is the worst intro
Totally
maybe yet.
improvised. Amazing. Wow. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Third Space Podcast with Daniel and Bennett.
Thank you. At first I was going to say thank you, but you're welcoming our audience.
Yes. It's been a long time. It's been a while. I think our last episode was about 2 months ago.
Yeah. So shout out to Zachary if he's listening.
Shout out to Zachary, our number one fan.
Yeah.
Who doesn't show up in our metrics for some reason. So, I don't know.
I think he just says he listens.
Yeah, it's just posturing. I've literally never met Zachary.
I've received 0 pieces of fan mail, so I don't
pretty
believe it.
disappointed.
From Zachary, at least.
I mean, I do all this work to avoid the paparazzi, and I miss out on the fan mail. So.
You've worked a little too hard to miss the paparazzi.
Yeah, I'm so good at it. So I had a thought a couple days ago that I thought I would just run by you. Kind of interesting, maybe. So
Okay.
I had this paradoxical. There's a paradox that I observed, and it has to do with how people view society in the U.S. in particular, but kind of how people think about the broad population. So you can tell me whether you think these views are accurate, whether you have them, because I kind of have them, and how you think they can coexist if they can at all. So one view is that people are idiots, and this is a view that of course I've espoused many times, but you see these man on the street videos with people getting interviewed, and they just say the dumbest things, and it's mind-boggling, right?
Right, they don't know our president, or they don't know basic
know
math,
how many states
or
we
whatever.
have.
This sort of the dumb masses, right? The dumb masses.
The dumb masses. And we had a show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, which many people failed on. So
It was playing on that idea.
Yeah.
That it's almost thrilling that everyone else is dumb, and that in some ways that's like the show Jerry Springer. You watch
Yeah.
it because you feel better than. So it's nice to think if everyone's kind of dumb, the bar is low, and I am over that bar.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree that that's a sentiment that not only collectively we have, and that I personally share. You see driving mistakes all the time, and you think, of course, everyone's an idiot. There would be no traffic if people would just, go when it's green, and there would be no boarding issues on plane. It just wouldn't be issues. So if everyone were like me, the world would be a better place. But unfortunately, everyone's not like me, and therefore there's friction.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good example about traffic. I was thinking social media brainwashing. People are just kind of stuck on it, and they just behave like idiots. There's scams that continue to be successful even though they're blatantly obvious. I mean, you're in the education field, and I mean, I'm sure you see plenty of idiocy there. So it's just a very prominent view that most people are dumb, and that it's amazing we get anything done. But then on the other hand, there's this other view that the United States is an exceptional place. We have the best and brightest in almost all industries. We're a cutting edge. We have the best doctors, the best engineers. Our GDP is super high. Like, we're at the forefront of everything. And I mean, this is a view that you hear a lot as well. Maybe less often than you did at a particular time in the past, but you still hear that. And the facts don't lie. I mean, society in the U.S. is pretty good in terms of quality of life, comfort, profit, opportunity, all of that stuff. And so you have these two things happening at the same time. Do you think that both of those views are true, or do you think there's maybe a flaw with one or both of them?
I would agree that yeah, life is pretty good. America's pretty great, and then that we do a lot of things right, and we have a quality of life. My thoughts went in a couple different directions. One is that in order to have quality of life, like if you said there was a standard quality of life, and we were like 1 to 2 deviations above that, and I'm just throwing that out there, like what does it take to get there? And I think it could be a few brilliant people. So like if America's known for being like the hotbed of creativity or inventiveness, then if you have creative people in positions of power creating products that it could then be replicated and sent to the masses, you could still have dumb masses receiving quality of life upgrades thanks to the you know the major contributors. So that doesn't seem contradictory. So like we all get uplifted by that. So yeah. I don't
So
know. It just kind of coincides easily in my mind. Does
so
it really seem that contradictory?
okay, yeah. So you think that we have a small percentage of exceptional people and a large percentage of coattail riders, essentially, that get to benefit from the exceptional ones.
I think that's true of any, not just like country, but an institution, and it's a really negative framing to say that like coattail riders, the productive and the unproductive. It's really just that it's kind of like not everyone can drive the ship, so you have someone driving the ship, and then where they're steering is where like everyone else is going. And so you could be a really productive member of a community, and you're just like, for whatever reason, maybe you don't want the responsibility, maybe you don't want whatever, but as long as you're like you value the leader and where they're going, and you're just part of it, and you could be extremely contributing, or someone who's minimally contributing in this giant range, and still I don't know, still like enjoy the benefits of it. So, but yeah, I think despite that framing a little bit negative, yeah, like I think it's just impossible to have tons and tons and tons of major contributors. That
Yeah.
doesn't work mathematically or logically. So,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you to an extent.
well, music and entertainment might be different, right? You can have tons and tons of contributors, and you could get like, because there's some subjective on quality of that, but like a quality smartphone, for instance, the market just can't handle like 20 different competitors and different operating systems. So the best hopefully will emerge, and like hopefully they continue to go in the right direction, kind of thing. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I mean, what you're kind of pitching this competitive free for all sort of thing where the cream rises to the crop, as they say.
Yeah.
uh, and and then everyone uses that best, and maybe part of that is why we're exceptional in terms of innovation and all of that sort of thing. It just but the negative part comes in when you think about how many people don't contribute to that. They're just there's no way. I mean, I can't think of any nice way to put it other than coattail riders or free riders or whatever. I mean, people just get the benefit of living off of what everyone else has contributed. And I mean, I don't think that we're unique in that respect. That's happened throughout history. There have always been the people who they just live their life, and they contribute in some small way in that they're a consumer in the economy, and maybe they buy from their grocery store and keep the grocery store in business and so on. It's just it's not a gigantic role in society.
Well, you're right. It's a humbling thing to think I'm a contributing, upstanding member of the community, but I teach English and I don't know, I don't produce.
Not even that good. You know?
Well, not that well.
Oh, well, maybe you're better than I thought.
I Yeah, well, I don't know anything about the car or the microphone I'm using right now or the computer, the inner workings. I don't contribute to, and even if I do know about it, like you know more about it, but you're not in any sort of production. So your knowledge of it might be there, but like you're not doing really any more than I am. I mean, you were doing code in this, you're a coder in that way. And like, I don't know. We're all just so specialized and like
perfect. Perfect. This is exactly the thought that I had. So I've led you there successfully. So my answer to the paradox, it's along the same lines that you thought initially, but I think that the reason why we can have the true statement that we're mostly idiots and the other true statement that we have lots of exceptional people is that we've become a society of specialists. Like, I think that is what has happened. Like, I think maybe in America's past, when we were founded, or even preceding the next 100 years or so, we were a society of generalists. You had your people on the frontier who they had to know how to build a house, build a cabin, take care of themselves in nature, hunt, repair their machinery and tools. They had to have a broad array of knowledge in order to survive and thrive. Now, we do not have to have a broad array of knowledge to survive and thrive. You just need to know your one thing, your one narrow area of expertise, and you need to know how to do it really well so that you can succeed. But you don't need to know how to, repair your dishwasher or change the oil in your car or make a hamburger. You don't need to know any of that stuff. You only need to know how to, open the dictionary and tell your classroom, what letter to look at for today's lesson. And I only need to know how to, turn on my computer and, type on my keyboard.
Press the one and the zero.
Press the one and zero in certain patterns in order to make things happen. And that's all I have to know how to do. But the reason why, some of the reason why I say this is because, like, when we do have cutting edge people who are outstanding in their field in all sorts of areas, but they are also idiots in every other area. I mean, this is why you have the experts, I'm doing air quotes there, talking about things outside of their field, and there's so much discussed with those people now and in recent times because they talk where they don't have any knowledge, and they're just as dumb as the man on the street in those areas.
Yeah. There's another thought I had, and it's tangential to this when you were describing the situation. I was picturing two different streets, identical in every way, but one's littered with trash and one's perfectly clean. Maybe it's near a gas station, whatever, just whatever you want to visualize. And my initial thought about the one community with the trash everywhere, oh man, people litter and this is gross, and the other one, oh wow, people don't litter. But I'm not sure. What's interesting to me is most people, most of the time, are not littering. And in fact, the litterer would be super small percentage. Like, it could be one jerk or maybe three jerks in an area. And so really the difference is that one area might be picking up more, might be cleaning more. So like it could be all things equal, and there's equal number of litterers generally speaking. And there's probably some degree of variant, but in general there's just going to be X amount of litterers in an area, and one is dedicated to picking up more. And like, as a person in society, I don't know how this exactly relates, but I think you can see that like the relationship of well, I don't know, I'm kind of losing my train of thought. but I find this interesting, like, as a society functioning, and I look around and would say, oh, this community's dumb perhaps, or this community this area is trashy, but it could be one jerk and no cleaners versus one jerk and maybe even just one cleaner. I don't know. If I picked up a piece of trash, it's really hard to maintain. Like chaos can encroach really, really easily and
Sure.
change perceptions about an area.
Yeah.
And so like I think I could kind of blanket statement everyone's dumb and society's gross and messes stuff up when it's just a small percentage of dumb people and other people kind of diffusion of responsibility. Say I'm not picking up someone else's trash, which is sort of a reasonable position to have. Like you didn't litter, you don't have to pick that up. It's something, it's gross. I'm not gonna like involve myself. And all of a sudden you have a gross community because of of that attitude.
So, so if I'm applying what you're saying to the generalist specialist sort of paradigm that I'm setting up, you're suggesting that maybe there are just a few specialists and a few generalists, or there's a few people on the extreme ends there. Most people are in the middle somewhere, and some people make things great and some people make things really not great, or is this
Yes.
totally tangential and
That's fair to apply. I mean, I think that people in the outer limits have disproportionate influence on society. Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't disagree with that one statement, but I actually I don't agree. I think that we have been pressed into most people being specialists, and that is the downfall. And it's not like when I say people are idiots, like I don't mean that most people's IQ is below 100. And like you and I are idiots in some areas. Like I mentioned, like what's under the hood of my car? Like I don't know. I mean, can I change my oil? Yes. Like, but I don't know how to fix my fan belt or whatever.
Pistons,
Pistons. Say no more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like I don't, there are lots of things I don't know how to do because I don't have to, because I've outsourced all of that need to other specialists who are specialists in that area. And obviously, this has many benefits. And it allows us to devote our time and effort to one thing, and that's how we can become exceptional. But I think, and I don't know this, but it makes me a little nervous that we're all kind of out on this precipice, and if something major went wrong, something bad happened, like, well, I mean, we just went through a 2-year shutdown of things, and people got a little wacky during that time, and we all learned to distrust experts. But imagine there was a solar flare or something, and it knocked out our power grid and a lot of our electronics for
Yeah.
some prolonged period of time, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. And we had to deal with that. Like, some people would just be totally incapable of managing their lives in circumstances like that.
Right.
Whereas when I compare that to at least my rosy historical view on the pioneers and that sort of thing, I imagine that those guys could tackle anything. Like if a tornado came through and destroyed their crops or something, like they're gonna be able to survive. Or if a band of wolves came and was I don't know, doing whatever wolves do, barking at them and
Bark,
stuff.
barking
Like,
at.
they could manage all right, and because
Well,
they knew how to do many different things.
I mean, what you're saying is the more independent someone is, the more of a generalist they necessarily are.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, and you could argue that there are pros and cons to both specialists and generalists. With specialists, the pro is that you can hyper develop down your narrow path and do it really well, but the con obviously is that you neglect the other areas.
And
With
you
the
have to be dependent on others. Like there's
yes,
a lot of trust in society.
exactly. That's a key point. Whereas the generalist, yeah, you have more independence. You have basic competence in many areas. I really admire the generalist sort of. And maybe it's not a surprise, but I really admire that generalist sort of mindset, and it's something that I kind of try to pursue myself. Like I enjoy having basic competence in many areas.
I mean, I could see like old, like 50-year-old Bennett, like retiring early and like having till living off the fat of the land,
Well, I
like
mean,
having a garden and like
yeah.
truly though, like but still wanting some modern comfort, so you wouldn't be like off the grid per se,
Sure,
but you
I can
would,
see
you
it.
know.
I can see it. I mean, I'm interested in that sort of thing. I mean, I think that engineers kind of naturally gravitate towards, or maybe generalists naturally gravitate towards engineering fields and stuff because they want to learn how things work. It's kind of a first principles sort of approach to the world. Like you learn how the most basic things work, and then if you're intuitive, you can extrapolate and abstract from that and uh, deduce how other things work.
Well, and in addition to that, I can imagine you, or maybe as an alternative to like, maybe you're not a garden guy, but as maybe 3D printers become more prevalent or things
Yeah.
like that, you sort of construct. I can imagine you coming up with widgets and gadgets and things in the home, and you just become a little quirky inventor of things, because and the cool part about that is the 3D printer, or at least that's how I'm imagining it. You don't. There's this whole separate skill set of like you'd have to learn wood shop and metal and like learn how to like bend metals and glass and whatever if you wanted to really like create things from scratch right now. But given 3D printing
Mhm.
potentials, like you could just you're more in the abstract of like how does this thing work logistically, get the math behind it, and then click the button after you've said everything and it like gets created essentially is what I'm saying.
I've thought about getting a 3D printer. They're so cool, and you can do. I mean, you can do so much with them, and they get better. They're getting better all the time.
Yeah.
But the downside. So all of those are pros to the generalist sort of outlook. But the downside is that you never progress far enough down one of those avenues of interest to become forefront in the field. I shouldn't say never, but you probably won't. If you're interested in so many things, then you're limited in terms of your time and energy, and so you're gonna spread out and explore many things
You'd
without
have to
being
beat
able
out
to.
the
Yeah,
specialist
I
if
mean
you're
the
gonna.
specialists are devoting their life, career, all of their education, every waking moment to that one narrow area. Like there's no way you're gonna be able to catch up with that.
Yeah.
Unless I mean, maybe you stumble upon some amazing invention or physics law or something, and you can leapfrog. But that's extraordinarily rare. That doesn't really happen. So you're just not going to do that as a generalist. But the point that you made about the specialist society requiring lots of trust and lots of interdependence as opposed to independence, like I think that's a big deal. I don't know whether that's good or bad. It just to me it seems risky, right?
Very
Because
risky. I've heard someone put it like this: we're 7 meals away from chaos, absolute chaos.
yes,
Because
that's a
at
good way to
seven
put it.
meals,
Yeah,
because that think about that's like okay, if you have a family and then you go breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then another breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and by the next breakfast you're ready to fucking fight, and I
yeah,
so I just like you're ready to go, like it is time to defend with violence or go out, like it's real, and that is scary, like because that I can imagine that scenario pretty easily, and 7 meals, that's nothing,
yeah. That's not a lot, and so it makes me think that it, if it's true that we're a specialist society, and I think it is, and if it's true that we're going to continue pushing in that direction, and I think it is, then it seems like one of our goals as a society should be to foster trust. Like that should be one of our top priorities because we have to rely on each other in order to continue to have our wonderful quality of life and our exceptionalism and all of that sort of thing. We have to rely on others, and so for someone like me, it's easy for me to distrust people, and like I mean, I think it's easy for a lot of like imagine the situation where you just move somewhere new. This is relevant to you, and
Yeah.
something goes wrong with your car, and you need a mechanic to repair it. Like you know, you're not just gonna go into the nearest mechanic place and just say, I don't know what's wrong under here, fix it for me. Like you're not going to do that because you wanted to have a mechanic that you can trust because I'm sure there are plenty of mechanics out there who would gladly rip you off. They see that you don't know what a piston is and they're just going to tell you, "Yep, your pistons are empty, and you're going to go, oh, okay.
Piston fluid needs refilling. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to say, all right. And they're going to say that's going to be $2,500. And you're going to be like, oh, gosh, this
Oh,
is
well, I
expensive.
guess I
But
gotta
I
pay.
guess I got to
Yeah.
pay because I don't know any better. And like that kind of society, imagine that everyone had that attitude towards every area, every industry. Your banker, your government, your police officers, your doctors. I mean, I'm saying these things, these different major areas of industry, and there actually is large amounts of distrust towards all of those areas, right? Like
Yeah.
many people distrust their mechanics, many people distrust their police officers, many people distrust their doctors. So like it seems to me like
And
we
their
are
schools, right? The
school
education
teachers.
systems are now
I mean,
under intense scrutiny. Yeah.
intense. All of these areas are under intense scrutiny, and it seems to me that this is very dangerous. And people. I don't know how this
These are
changes.
pillars of society, and and they are dependent upon trust. That is the foundational thing in which society is built upon. I think you said that is
Yeah.
trust. And then if trust is at an all-time low or eroding due to, I mean, I'll simplify and say like political
I mean,
reasonings. Yeah,
due
I
to
mean,
bad actors in those industries, like legitimate people who deserve criticism, but they're publicized, and then they're all of those stories are shot through the bullhorn, and everyone hears about them, and therefore distrusts the entire industry. I mean, it's not like the distrust is without reason. It's just
right.
that like I don't know what the solution to that really is, because typically when there's something wrong, I would say, okay, well, it's the individual's job to insulate themselves from that sort of thing, which if I were to follow that tack, it would be okay, all of you specialists out there need to start turning towards being a generalist a little bit more, learn how to do things, be self-sufficient, be independent. And I think that is, that's a good general it's a good general strategy to take, is for everyone to just become a little bit less ignorant and learn how to take care of themselves a little bit more, educate yourselves and become self-sufficient. But like that doesn't
That's an
actually.
individualistic view, right? Like asking how does the individual protect themselves, but on a societal level, yeah, it's like
Yeah, I mean,
how do we gain trust in these pillars again, or how do we, assuming we want a society that it is sort of gonna, if assuming specialists is just the direction we're heading, like that's
Right.
an irreversible, and that's a big assumption. I understand
I mean,
that, but
I
like
think it is. I don't think there's any way around it. Imagine if we stopped being a specialist society, we would also stop being an economic powerhouse, and we would stop being the cutting edge of
oh
everything.
yeah,
And
it'd
like
be pressing pause on history in terms of like technological progression, medical progress, lots of things. It would just be like, all right, gotta figure out how to hunt. Let me buy a bow and arrow off Amazon. No, I gotta make my bow and arrow. Dang, like it would just be a giant setback. I mean, the idea of spending my time in air conditioned rooms talking about literature all of a sudden seems like so indulgent.
and so I mean, I think that really the if we're committed to the specialist path, which we are, and I think we should be, like one solution is to encourage people to on their own become more generalist oriented. But I don't think that solves the major problem. I mean, because we're stuck with these big institutions, we can't just demolish them and restart. So the only way I can see that succeeding is to radically improve transparency. I mean, that's how you foster trust, right? Is
That's
you
That's actually where I was thinking. Yeah, with trust, you trust through transparency, and then perhaps in some ways, that's what's happening. And the transparency has shown a lot of ugliness that maybe has existed for a long time, but with all our advances, we just see so much more, and we don't know how to handle the degree of transparency, and we don't know how to handle the misinformation, and we don't know how to handle so much of it. So like
and I
we are
think
in infancy stages of like almost so much transparency. We don't know how to digest properly or discern what matters and what doesn't, or
well,
what's real and what's not. And that's
yes.
just,
Well,
ugh.
think about this. We're such specialists that when we learn about corruption in an institution, or bad politicians who now we can see what they're up to, we're such idiots that we don't know how to fix the problem anymore. Like people don't know. People have become so accustomed to.
Sure you do. You pick it and you throw things.
Yeah,
You think you yell and you make a sound. You
right,
yell.
yeah. No, exactly. That's what you do. You throw a temper tantrum because that's
Yeah.
the only like we have
An
the
organized temper tantrum.
we have the mentality of 2-year-olds when we're outside of our area of expertise, and so when we see something we don't like, we just go, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Or he gets people to sign something that symbolically represents.
right, yeah, put the badge on your profile, and like there you go. You've
A
done
sign. How do you
citizen
spell?
MRENNNN. Yeah, and so like maybe my idea of push people a little bit more towards being a generalist would be good because then at least you might know how to tackle the bigger problems that that you're exposed to, um, or at least make suggestions for how to fix them. So you might know how to pursue transparency better. And so yeah, I think you're right that we're kind of in the infancy stages of this, but hopefully people are at least aware of the problems and might change things for the better. But
That's
it
my
just
hopeful framing. Is what's going to happen is like my hopeful framing is that things are actually super transparent, and that transparency just that's an opportunity though for people who want to manipulate or stir pots or do a forced teaming technique, politically speaking, like, oh, this is bad and let me just tell you that it's bad. And then so it isn't that there's not enough transparency. It's that transparency opens us up for lots of abuse and people wanting shortcuts. Hey, interpret it for me. There's too much information out there. I'll just listen to or read my trusted team's source and then I'll respond accordingly. Like, I mean, it just
that's definitely true. I mean, when you're time limited, you can't research everything. If we had a truly 100% transparent society, which we do not,
I think
by
there's a
any
twisted
means.
sort of joy too in thinking that people are idiots, and so it's there's something.
Well, it's the "Are you smarter than a fifth grader" audience member phenomenon that you pointed out. Like if you think everyone else is an idiot, or if you think that everyone else is immoral, then it makes you feel really nice and superior.
Right, yeah, and so uh, that's that's huge to think, or it's fulfilling to think. It's affirming to think. It gives you a sense of purpose. It you you have a goal. You have an enemy that needs to be defeated. It's just it's an external enemy, and it's good versus evil. It's classic. It's
I mean,
compelling. Yeah.
think about this. This just occurred to me too. Like when you talk about how what do we do when there's a problem? We and we get our signs. Those people have become specialists in activism or complaining or temper tantrums. Like they're people that have actually molded their lives into becoming experts in grievance, which is kind of
Yeah.
a wild thought. Like that how luxurious of a life must we have if you can specialize in grievance. Like, wow.
Also, how upsetting psychologically. Like we know that if you are, like being happy, is hard work, right? You have to train yourself to spot. Like
Yeah,
gratitude,
yeah.
is a learned skill. You see it, you recognize it, you practice it, and if you, conversely, if you see, spot, and recognize any grievances, then you train
Yes.
yourself. Like that is psychologically profoundly damaging, and like I that would impact you to your core and how you operate in the world in really, really negative ways, both just socially and personally. I imagine that. I guess my thing is I'm saying that activists or professional grievance makers are like have a longer pathway toward genuine fulfillment. I mean, obviously they're going to get
Definitely.
rewarded by their own social capital. Like they've developed this own form of affirmation, and they're getting it. So it's this
Well,
weird mixture
the
of they're getting affirmation.
specialized happiness as well, right? Like
Yeah.
they only gain happiness from their um, their narrow circle of people, but no
And
broader
it's a
happiness.
weird mixture, though. Yeah, it's a mixture of, yes, you're getting affirmation for spotting that thing you should be angry about, but like then you have to follow through and be angry about it. And so, and then that, we talk about paradoxes, like that is difficult to consume. Is like, yes, I spotted it. Yes, I'm getting affirmation within my niche group, and I'm moving up the ranks there. I've done something good. I've collected my points of that, whatever capital I'm getting, and then I'm also now necessarily more miserable because I'm recognizing the misery in the world.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I imagine though that they, in some way, they don't view as just fun. I imagine, just to play devil's advocate, is like it's not a. They would reject this framing completely and say, like, the truth needs to be told, and I'm like uncovering truths, and I'm a martyr, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the most. I'm actually suspicious of any like self-ascribed martyrs.
Oh, definitely.
And they probably don't like if, yeah, like that is excuse making to the core to say, like, I need to sacrifice myself for the betterment of society. Look, I'm doing God's work, or I'm doing, I don't know, like I'm doing this, I'm doing something huge for a bigger purpose. I mean, it's all grand, but the ego on
Well, it's
you,
delusion of
the
grandeur.
ego on you, yeah,
Yeah.
like that is a massive ego. I guess, yeah, delusions of grandeur is the right phrase to think that you. Oh, I'm suffering. I am the Christ figure, I am.
Right.
That's it. That's
No,
taking
yeah,
on.
you're
That's a
right.
God complex, is what I'm saying.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
to think that you're so important that, like, your misery. So that's that twisted way to feel good about your misery. And I have some form of fundamental disgust toward that. I had a colleague once, and I won't go into details, but say, the kids just seem generally happy, and it pisses me off. Like, kids, they need to, like, wake up and realize how miserable. Like, our job as educators is to make them miserable. And I was like, that is
Wow,
gross.
what a
Like,
terrible
oh
worldview.
yeah,
What
yeah.
a
I mean,
terrible way to view your job. Like,
yep,
that's totally opposite of the way I think a teacher should behave. Like, a teacher's job is to engender wonder and like fascination with all the knowledge that's out there in the world.
yeah, yeah. With a
And
critical lens, yes, and
yeah,
yes, that
sure.
growth might be uncomfortable, and there might be an up and down, but like in terms of joy, there might be some setbacks on that path. I mean, anytime you've dug deeply in any subject, there are ups and downs in terms of your personal. I mean, if you're stepping outside your comfort zone, if you're truly learning, that means you're constantly being surprised by information you didn't fully, and that's really uncomfortable. And it will surprise you, and it will annoy you because it didn't fit your preconceived notions. And when something doesn't fit your conceived notions, that means you had something wrong, and it's not really fun to be wrong. So you're constantly being told, in some ways, if you're learning, you're constantly recognizing where you're
How wrong
wrong.
you
I
are.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a frustrating concept. And yeah, the world is full of, like, terrible things too. So as you expand your views and realize how many terrible things and how corrupt things are, yeah, but it's also full of wonderful things. So you get to choose what to emphasize. And so, yeah, if you want to emphasize all the horrible things and just, I don't know, the idea that our job is to make kids a little bit more miserable, because, I mean, that's the assumption that the world really is miserable. That's the fundamental assumption, that it is a horrible place, and they
Right.
need to recognize that. And
Well,
that's where it's
it's
just
also
twisted.
like it kind of seems wrong because what do people hold up as the beautiful thing about childhood? It's innocence, and it is that childlike sense of wonder and the ignorance of all those terrible, miserable things. And if you say it's your job as an educator to destroy that innocence, like there's something kind of sick about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess from a certain perspective, I can see, I can understand at least part of the sentiment, right? Like you don't want
I do understand it,
totally
yeah, for the record,
vulnerable,
yeah. You don't
totally
want ignorant
vulnerable.
people. You're trying to, yeah,
Yeah,
combat ignorance is what you're trying to do. And that's
right,
what the spirit of what they were saying was in,
yes,
yes.
the spirit of it. I mean, you want them to be strong enough to withstand the difficulties that they'll inevitably encounter, but that doesn't mean that it's your job to foist those difficulties on them right now. Like that
Yes.
it's not your job for that. It's your job to prepare them, not to inflict upon them. So
Well,
I think
why it really annoyed me when it was this message was delivered, they were fundamentally frustrated that kids were happy. It
yeah,
wasn't. I mean,
that's yeah
that
that yeah that's
that
that's
is
just
like,
a that's a jealousy sort of thing, right? Like,
yes.
I'm old and bitter now. Why can't I be young and carefree and having
And since
happy
I
times?
cannot be, maybe I can,
I'll make them
expedite their process
I'll make
toward
them into
misery.
people like me, so we can commiserate instead of it being a battle. Yeah, that's
Yes.
pretty disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
One last thought that I had that's a little bit unrelated, but when I was thinking about generalists and specialists, I wondered, is there surely there is a temperamental component to whether you're more prone to turn into a generalist or a specialist. And to me, it seems like, with respect to Myers Briggs types, I mean, intuitive types would almost certainly be pushed toward the generalist path, whereas the sensing types would be pushed toward the specialist path, because the intuitive types are all about abstract ideas and taking knowledge from one area, abstracting it, and applying it to another area, which just it it fits so perfectly with branching out into many different broad areas. Whereas the sensing types, they're all about concrete details and examples, and outside in, taking knowledge from the outside, integrating it, and then pushing forward on their path. And that's what specialists do, right? They push forward on their narrow path of knowledge. They take the existing body of information, the concrete information, and they utilize it. And so it just seems a natural fit. And maybe what we see in the United States, and maybe even more broadly than that, is a reflection of the demographics in terms of intuitive and sensing. If I remember the
Most
numbers,
people are sensing.
yeah,
Yeah,
if I remember the
right.
numbers right, it's about 60% of people are sensing types.
I thought it was even higher, but yeah, yeah.
For women, it's I think closer to 75% sensing types. Uh, and so
I
well,
thought
and
that
that
would be
make
reversed, to be honest. Yeah, wow.
well, and that makes sense too, because as more and more women have entered the workforce over the past century or so, we've become more and more specialized as well, and so we're pushing along the specialist path. I mean, I assume if there is a particular balance between intuitive and sensing, then we'll taper off at some point, and find a balance. But it also makes me wonder. We've talked about how mutable personality types are, and what causes there to be more intuitive types or more sensing types. Is it totally, is it totally based on genetics, or is it your upbringing? And could we enter into this path where we're specialist society, we're encouraging specialists, and therefore we push more sensing types into the population. Essentially, we
Right, in 20
select.
years, it's 85%
Yes, right.
sensing.
We
Yeah.
select for that because that's what's successful. And will intuitive types eventually be pushed to the margins? I don't know, but it's
I
just
mean,
a
you could see if you want to like think about your like think of an old man who used to run a business and is trying to give the young person advice, but it's a little bit misguided because they're coming from a generalist perspective. When they ran their business, let's just say it's a smaller business, but they kind of did everything. They were doing the customer service, they were doing the marketing, they were doing the books. They were just like a catch-all, right, for the business. And now that just really doesn't apply. And so then you get this sort of okay boomer, like, because they're giving
right, right.
advice to you, and
Well, yeah, they're
it just
saying
doesn't apply.
balance your checkbook,
Yeah, yeah. And there's still
and
core values of like be responsible financially there, but
yeah,
even yeah, yeah.
yeah, right. Keep an eye on your budget and all that. That's the underlying message. But
Or even missing the idea that there are specialized teams that your small business has. Like you already have a person for that, and they're trying to
right,
talk to you about how you need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're like,
yes,
look, I got a team for that. Like,
right,
and so that's so I can imagine the older like retiree feeling a little bewildered for the reasons you're speaking of. Like they're a generalist living in a sensing a specialized society, and not just not knowing where they fit and going yeah, and they can talk generally about a lot of things, but they can't they're talking past the specialist.
Well,
and so on.
another interesting thing though is that when we think about this stereotypical generalist retiree, one other thing that you think of is wisdom. And when you're a generalist, you can make those connections and you have the first principles ideas. And so even though they may not know the newfangled iPhones and your fancy technological widgets, they don't know about those specialized things, but they do have insights into broader ideas. So you can still get wisdom from those sorts of folks. So it
Yeah,
all fits. I
absolutely.
mean, it all fits.
But the
And
sensing person or the specialist might not hear that wisdom,
that's true. Yeah.
because it doesn't fit in their narrow, like their. So yeah, that's what I mean by talking past each other. Like, and that's the frustrating part, is that the old person might be giving some advice that the younger person is misinterpreting as outdated,
Right.
because they just have a specialist mentality, and it might not be an old young. It might be more
Yeah.
accurately framed as a generalist specialist, and
Right.
that's
Or
interesting.
an intuitive sensing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you and I have commented many times on how, when an intuitive person talks to a sensing person, it's like they're talking through some kind of opaque, wall or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and the communication doesn't work right. Like, you have to translate what they're saying, then interpret it, and then try to react to it instead of it just being natural. And maybe that's what we're talking about. Maybe part of the generalist specialist thing is temperamental, and that difficulty in communication plays into it.
Fascinating stuff, man.
Fascinating stuff. Well, thank you. Thanks for indulging me. I don't know. That just I'm sure people have talked about generalist specialists ad nauseum. I've never really heard anyone talk about it, but it just occurred to me that, well, that seems like an answer to the paradox of how we can be both idiots and brilliant at the same time.
And appear increasingly
Of both.
brilliant. And yeah, we keep going down that road, and it'll be more intensified as time moves on.
Right. So shifting topics to, I guess, the more mundane, but but
Me?
but also exciting. I mean, we're talking about abstract nonsense here.
Yeah.
But part of the reason why we haven't had an episode in so long is because you've essentially changed your whole life over the past couple of months.
Yes, I have.
I don't even think we mentioned that you got engaged on the podcast, because I mean that was only 2 or 3 episodes ago.
Yeah.
And we never talked about it, and then you had an accelerated a wedding, and so you're married now.
I am married and living in
And
North
now
Carolina, a new state,
you have
from
totally
Florida to North Carolina,
Yeah,
with a
you
new
totally
job
moved.
and a
Yeah.
wife.
You changed everything. You changed so much, and so like there's lots of ground to cover there. I want to ask you about those things.
Please do, because yeah, those are the bullet points. Is that I decided I need to move jobs, and then once that happened, we were engaged for about 2 months, and Danielle said, "Well, like, why get married in a new state, new place with no connections?" Because we were gonna have about a year-long engagement. We honestly didn't know the typical length of an engagement is a year, and that makes sense. And there's a lot of charts out there on like when and what you should do, what stages of the wedding you should be at in terms of wedding planning and all of that. And
Did you
you
look at
know,
all that kind of stuff?
just brief. I literally didn't know like what's the length of an engagement, and there is no answer. By the way, there's no definitive answer, but there are just general trends. And that's useful to me, and I like that it's not a rule. That it's just like here's how it generally goes. And a year-long engagement seems reasonable, and it also positioned. I mean, I got engaged over spring break. To get married over spring break would be nice, and then go on a little honeymoon and
Yeah.
still not miss school or anything like that. So everything made a lot of sense. She was the one who came to me when this is even before I had my next job. It was just looking very clear that I would have a job elsewhere. And she said, before, like we're not going to know where we're at, and we're going to plan a wedding while you have a new job in a new city where we're trying to make connections. That's going to be ridiculous. Let's just get married here in Florida before we go. And I thought, what? That's 2 months? 2 months before we and then I kind of put my hand over my mouth. Like, why am I trying to like elongate what is in my opinion, just a stress ball money suck kind of thing. Even though, don't get me wrong, like Like I actually had a blast at my wedding, and there were plenty of moments planning my wedding that were really fruitful and awesome for our relationship. And we did what we wanted to do, and I'll frankly just say I'm proud of that. And like because we bucked a lot of tradition, but in thoughtful ways, right? We didn't just discard, we considered, and we thought how bucked authority or tradition is not the right framing. I would say we considered tradition and we adapted it to what made sense for us.
Yeah, I think that's the role of tradition, in my opinion, is
Actually, so I honored tradition. I wouldn't say buck. I would say I honored tradition in ways that fit us, and considering the circumstances, the money, the time, a lot of different variables. And so, yeah, like, and when you do a wedding from scratch, I want to give you like an example. I mean, when you say it's from scratch, let's just say you decide what song to walk down the aisle to. That's great. And in a lot of weddings, that's your job, is to decide the song. But when you do it like we did it, it's like we had a band, and we hadn't told people we had a band at all. We had a lot of little, I would call them Easter eggs or secrets. So we had hired this band that were two older people, and they like played washboard and like one string like on a
bass.
stick, like
Yeah, it was
your
weird.
bass. It was really cool and very like something that would be seen at like an underground bar, like a hipster bar, kind of thing, or like
or a country fair.
that's one way to
That's what I thought
like
when I saw it. I mean, it was literally an upside down like metal bucket with a stick on it and a string, and that was the bass. And then the
it
guy
was
had
really
a
cool.
guy had
Like
a
how was it
banjo.
generating that sound? And he had a banjo and like and he had like suspenders, and they
Yeah.
for instance, they play frequently at this bar, or that there's a speakeasy, with like silent films going on in the background and things like that. And so
I was
but
pretty
anyway,
disappointed that you didn't have a silent film going on in the background at your wedding.
but the point is though, you pick your song, and then the question becomes, well, okay, how are we actually going to play that song? And in a weird way today, like people have Spotify and different music, but like we didn't. It's like, okay, well, let's get the free subscription to YouTube Music. Okay, great, we get that. Now, what speaker? What's it going to play out of? Who's actually going to? Okay, so I bought like a party speaker for, the pool and stuff. I was like, that'll be loud enough for the room. Okay, well, who's going to like connect to it with what phone or device? Okay, who's going to actually press play when it happens? Like, who's going to stop it from just immediately going to the next track? Or
The
who's going to
DJ
make sure
that you
this
hired,
this
the
yeah,
DJ that you hired
which
for
we didn't have one,
$30,000.
right? Well, the or the two old people playing in the band, they were awesome, by the way. But like, so like my point is the logistical, just every little thing is like, okay, you order food, but what about keeping it warm? And do they serve with this? And like, because we didn't go through a caterer, we went through, hey, I love chicken sandwiches from this particular place, can we just get those? And let's get a nacho bar, and like,
Yeah,
like
your wedding was remarkably, I guess, self-orchestrated. Like you didn't have teams of organizers running around with clipboards and telling people where to go and what to do. Like it felt, which also, at least from my perspective, as a minor participant, made it feel more comfortable and more casual, I guess, and less strict and stuffy and stodgy.
Yeah, well, when you end up having 37 people, we knew every single person. We had a relationship with them. There was a reason they were there. This wasn't, and in that way, there was a comfort level. And the way we staggered, we rented an Airbnb. I'll just call it a McMansion. It was bigger, and it like could hold 11, 12 people or so. So like the wedding, essentially most of the wedding party, and you know this already, but like that you guys came on Saturday for like lunch, and then we went to our favorite dive bar, and then we went out and had drinks and all of that, and then we spent Sunday recovering, relaxing, and we had this big barbecue, and lots of people coming to the wedding stopped by. And then on Monday we actually had the wedding. And the reasons for that was, Danielle's in theater, so her loved ones are also in theater, and they can't just. That's one of the more difficult professions to just miss a day, obviously, because they would either have to find someone to stand in, or, just culturally, you do not miss a day unless you let them know at the signing of your contract for some big deal, and then they can plan, months in advance, literally. So
Right.
you can't. So this Monday was a dark day for theater, so it also made planning a wedding in 2 months feasible because venues, vendors, photographer, all that, like it was possible because they're backed up, months and months, if not years in advance. So
Let me
all of
ask.
that happened. Yeah.
So let me ask this. Just maybe this can kind of funnel your thoughts here. What was the of the whole wedding experience? I guess let's put aside the engagement for now and just talk about wedding experience. What was the best and the worst part? And I guess you can pick something small and trivial, or more broad, just whatever you think. Like reflecting on it, I'm sure you've reflected on it a little, and will continue to do so over the next however long.
Yeah.
But at where you are right now, what was your favorite part and your least favorite part of the whole
I guess
thing?
I'll start with the negative because I'd like to end with positive, and that's how I generally feel is positive about it. But the worst part, I'll get the money part out of the way. Obviously, money sucks. Like spending a lot of money, and you go and you think, oh, $600 for nachos for 35. It just gets exorbitant quick, like pricey fast. And that annoys me. Or the photographer being like photographer. We wanted a great photographer. That was a really big deal to Danielle, and I can understand if you're
Yeah.
gonna have this, like let's do it, like magazine quality photos, like let's do this. And so we got a great photographer who like heads up, and he said he wanted to come personally because he actually, like, I won't say interviewed us, but he talked to us for 45 minutes. He likes to get to know his couples a little bit, and he was in a lot of communication. Anyway, he was like $1,500,
Yeah.
and then tip and all of that, and then
You tip
so everything
you
was.
tip the photographer?
I mean, we chose to give
That's
him
so weird. I
I
mean,
well
we've
like
we've talked about tipping, but like that's so weird to tip a photographer
I
that you're paying
know,
$1,500
I
for.
know,
Like
yeah,
you didn't tip
or
me.
the
I
true
mean, we didn't tip you either, though. So it's weird.
personal
Like
serve,
everyone
yeah, I
tips
don't.
everyone all the time.
So the money thing was frustrating. Another frustrating thing is like when you're doing. Well, I guess this would happen in any wedding scenario, but we bypassed a lot of annoying things like who sits where and what
Hmm.
politics goes into that. We just were like, nah, it'll be fine. They'll figure it out. But I would say anytime you're working on something that everything, I mean, there's so many logistics that has to be sorted out. And so it's not just you making the decision, it's like you and your partner. So me and Danielle had to say, the friction occurred when I would value, for instance, the thing I told you about the music. Like,
Hmm.
I was very concerned about, look, we haven't even selected a speaker to play the music, or who's going to connect, or who's going to press play, or what device we're going to use, or how we're actually going to get. And she, for instance, she was saying that stuff's easy. That's going to work itself out. So we were up to the Thursday night, Friday before you guys flew in and arrived, having not had that sorted out. And I was getting, I'll say it, I was being mad about it. I'm like, no, like, no. And in fact, this is how I knew I was nervous, is because I was pushing every day saying, let's figure that, let's put that on the list of things to do today. And she'd say, it'll be fine. And eventually I said, look, to ease the frustration and the tension for me, not to be clear, we weren't like fighting or anything, but it was just like I was getting more and more annoyed. And I said, look, can this just be, she, maybe it was her even. She just said, it'll be my thing. I'll take care of it. I'm going to take that off your plate because you're clearly frustrated by it. I'll do it, right? Like, don't worry about a thing. I got it. And you
Hmm.
can trust me. And I said, okay, great. Because that actually was a smart way to relieve it from me. Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
no longer my responsibility. And I'm able to do that. So this is how I knew. Flash forward, by the way, day of the wedding, like I'm arriving a little early before y'all, and she's there early, and we're setting up some things and all of that. And she looked at me, and we had the speaker, and we had some things sorted out. Like we were going to use her computer, since she had things sorted out. She was going to use her computer. She was going to ask the band to press play, all these things. But she was a little bit behind, so she just looked at me and said, "Hey, I need you to do this, to figure that out." And I thought, and so I had a bunch of questions that I just peppered her with because I was frustrated. I said, "Okay, I'll do it, but like, you got to give me your password. I need to know how to. I don't know how to use your Windows operating system, so you're gonna have to teach me how to set it
You're
so it
such a
does not close."
specialist.
Like, in this case,
You're
I'd
such
already had
a
15 questions, so in a form of, I'll even just say it was just rude and me being nerd. And so instead of just going, hey, I got it, and being a good groom or whatever, I frustratedly like said, here are my 15 questions then that you've got to deal with because this was on your, this was, and I'll admit it, I know I sound like a jerk kind of saying that, but like that's just where I was at. I was like, this was supposed to, like, I have been this particular issue, and it's funny. I want to be clear. This is a small thing in the grand thing of planning a wedding, but like, it was just funny that
I
was
don't
like
know.
the
It
thing.
sounds like a pretty big deal. It sounds like you have some regrets.
Uh, no, I really don't. And like I knew it would take. It's just that I knew that this was the moment you press play to begin the wedding. Do you know what I mean? And so for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
I fixate. This is true of me as a teacher in the classroom, on parent night, anytime I have a performance, so to speak. First days, like I really consider the beginning of things because
Yeah, you gotta make
once
a
like
first
I've made,
impression.
yeah, and then I can roll with it. I can,
Yeah.
like, it's difficult to flub up and then get it going.
Right, right.
And whereas if I just smoothly know how it's going to go, I know my opening thing, then I can be comfortable. So
Yeah.
that, so kind of like, oh, so back to, so the worst thing, and that out to extrapolate and say that more generally, like when you're planning so many logistical things, and honestly, Danielle did so much of it while going to school, just not because I was just sitting on my butt, but because of things like
You
I
kind
did
of were
not know
though,
how.
right? Because
I,
it was
I was
summertime
definitely
and
not. I was playing.
you
I
were
was
just
pl-
sleeping, and teachers don't.
uh,
Teachers
I
have it
was
so
planning the
easy, and
I
they
was
don't
planning
have
the
to work.
move, reading my books, and
I mean,
helping with the wedding. But there
you
were
had quit
moments
your job, so it's not like you had anything to do for the next year because it was a totally different job.
from
So
from July 6th or so to July 23rd or whenever y'all got into town, I like that was the time I had off. She because we got married on July 25th, by the way, and so we uh, so if she cared about things like what color are the tablecloths going to be, and like I do care about aesthetics, but I didn't know how to contribute. I'd be like, she'd show me things, and I'd be like, that looks great, and it's kind of, I understand her frustration. She wants an honest opinion, and they honestly looked all great, and I just didn't have as much of an opinion. So like that's so she would end up having to be the one to select it by necessity. I said I will, but I'll just choose the blue ones, or and it seems like the wrong way. I agree that seems like the wrong way to choose. Like the person who cares significantly more needs to be the one making that decision. So some
sure.
of those decisions fell on her. She wanted to like
I mean, I think
do the
that's
floral
probably
patterns and stuff, like or
yeah.
figure out how to do the flowers or what goes on the table.
Right.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
ran to IKEA with her and helped pick up some little flower, whatever. I
yeah.
tried.
I
So
mean, I think that this is probably, I don't have a lot of
it's a female
wedding
industry. Let's
experience.
be
Yes,
honest.
that's what
Yeah,
I was going
like
to say.
heavily,
It's a
heavily.
heavily female industry because the woman is the one generally who cares way more about the wedding. And so if you have that philosophy where the person who cares more should make the decisions, then well, it just naturally means that the woman has more responsibility during the wedding
So
and making all the decisions.
So generally, yes, and the worst part would be me valuing the timeline in different ways that she valued. Like we both agreed these things need to get done, but these like I needed in my mind I would get fixated on that music, and she was more concerned with doing other important things too, by the way. So like that was where like that I can see when you're planning something, two people are planning something big, so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
You either just say, here's a wedding planner, and so then the friction of money and paying
Right.
so much, it
and,
becomes
and,
a
and
factor,
then
or
you lose control too because
and you lose
you're
control.
going to
Yeah,
get your wedding was
an interpretation of your wishes instead of your
yes,
wishes.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So you're going to get like see, I don't know why this popped into my head, but this is an experience that I had a long time ago that has never left me, and maybe you'll see why it's related. So when I after college, when I was going to interview for my very first job, I had to buy a suit, and I hate dressing up. I hate suits. Actually, your wedding is the first time I've worn a suit since the story that I'm relaying. And so my parents took me to a men's warehouse and we went in and had to buy a suit. And so we were asking like the lady there for all of her advice and everything. And it got to
yeah.
the part where we had to select a tie. And, she said, okay, what kind of tie do you want? And I was like, oh, I'd like a green tie. Green, because I really like the color green. And she gave me this like really scrunched face, kind of contemptuous look, like, you can't have a green tie. And she picked out two other ties that were like, red and blue. And that just stuck with me. It's like, I'm the one
So
making
many.
the decisions here, right? Like, yeah, maybe you're
Yeah,
the
yeah.
you're the suit expert lady, but I'm the one wearing the thing. And so to translate this into your situation, if you have a wedding planner and you say, we just want to press play on her computer to play the song, she's gonna go, no, you can't just press play on the computer.
Exactly. No, there's so many ways that the way the wedding industry makes their money is they would say, for instance, we did our, I'll call it a rehearsal dinner. It definitely was not, but we decided to get dressed up and go to our favorite dive bar. And we loved that juxtaposition, how fun it would be to go to our favorite place and like be kind of dressed up. I'm not nothing super fancy, but like
Yeah,
tucked in shirts, button down, whatever, in our divey bar, the kind that would turn heads. Like it's a Floridian dive bar. It's like, like not probably the most dressed up that's ever been in there.
right.
And so we liked that idea. But you can imagine a wedding planner going, no, absolutely not. Like that's tacky or whatever reasons. And so there's so many planning the wedding, and if you look up what the traditions are, they're like everyone like they everything goes, well, look, you only get married once, hopefully. Like that's like a standard
Yeah, yeah,
canned
yeah.
joke. And then since you're only getting married once and this is about love, the thing is, don't worry about money, worry about love.
Yeah,
And
it's
like
very
if you
exploitative.
if you love them, yeah, so it's ultra exploitative. And so but that's being kind of a homebrew similar attitude that we had. Like, and by the way, at telling people in the time leading up that we were getting married and that like it was 37 people and the people that we're gonna, it's basically a party. Like we're gonna party Saturday, chill Sunday, get married Monday and party again. And like, everyone older and wiser in terms of marriages and all of that, or weddings, excuse me, they were like, that is the way to do it. Now, maybe they were just being agreeable and kind because I'd already told them that's what we're doing. But everyone kind of looked and said, that is I went, and they would share a story about how they went to a smaller wedding or how they regret that their wedding was big and,
Yeah.
like it was just and so everyone, and I hearing that feedback over and over makes me kind of believe it. And I think it's right. Like, I think
Yeah, no.
even Dave said wistfully a little bit, he's like, man, and so did Wavy. He said, you guys did it right. Like you partied Saturday, recovered Sunday. Like there was time, there was space. And by the time, like the wedding really did fly by. I didn't get to play with games with y'all. I didn't get to, I thought with a small wedding, I would have too much time. I even talked to you about this beforehand going, we have so much time. I think I might need to have some games built in, some whatever. Like there was
Right.
no, like for me, it flew by. And I was, brief visits with people here and there. And then it was basically end of wedding kind of
Yeah, yeah.
moment. And so I didn't get to hardly dance. Like there was just,
Yeah, there
it
was no
just,
dancing.
there was no dancing, even though it was a party and chill. And you would think, like I envisioned lots of dancing. I imagined a long, like party dancing, but it almost went so quick that I just don't know.
Well,
It really
I'll say
was a blur.
I'll
So
interject right here that I think that your wedding is probably going to be the best wedding I ever go to.
yeah.
Including if I get married, it'll be better than my wedding too, because like I won't have that. I had very little responsibility. There was no dancing. Like it was very laid back and casual, and I actually had a good time, which I never thought I would say about a wedding. So
I
like
thought you might actually did, and I wanted to know if that was just my perception, if I was just in a great mood or what. But you seem to like genuinely have like throughout the whole weekend,
oh
and
yeah, I had a
I
great
think
time.
I
I
think
loved it.
everyone, I think
I
everyone
did too.
did. It was
Yeah, I
just
don't
like
think anyone.
actually a blast.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think anyone had a bad time. Like the whole trip was a lot of fun.
I mean, pretty blissful. Of course, I'm biased and framed toward the positive, but oh my gosh, like it was just like. And what was great is actually like I planned that, it unfolded that way, and it went very well. Like I've never had something that's the biggest planned
Yeah.
party essentially
Aside
ever, and
from
like it's
if I had complaints, it would be the music. There was a real gap. No one pressed play, and then the tablecloths. Those would be my two complaints if I had to pick.
I'll go toward my favorite thing. There's so many moments I enjoyed. I enjoyed that okay, one thing I just said is I enjoyed that the plans actually played out. I enjoyed all
Yeah.
the camaraderie and all of that. I mean, all the general fun, I'll just blanket statement say, was amazing. But one choice we made was to do our vows differently, almost as a spoken performance where we both spoke at this, we delivered our vows simultaneously in conjunction and played off each other.
It was like a
So
skit.
it was like a skit and a little bit of a surprise where I started and then she interjected, and it's like, what is she doing? Was hopefully the feel we were, and then, oh, this is like a skit almost in which we address the audience and then each other. And I think when you make vows, I thought about this and was like, what would represent us? What would be cool to do? What would be memorable? Also, good vows, like if you write them, then you deliver them, and then it kind of goes away. People forget them, or say, you write some cutesy things. I don't know, but like we wanted to make it memorable. And if you're
Personal.
going to act impersonal, and if you actually do a vow toward each other, like if this is our first major act in getting married and like starting our life together, then shouldn't it be collaborative? And then Danielle actually came up with the idea
I was gonna
of
ask. I was gonna ask whose idea it was. Maybe this is a compliment to both of y'all for choosing to do it this way. But I couldn't figure out whose idea it was because it was weird. It was very weird, and but entertaining. And I thought it went over really well. And given Danielle's acting background and your just general weirdness background, I couldn't figure out.
general weirdness.
I couldn't figure out whose idea it was. So now I know.
So it was
Danielle's.
her idea, and so there's this spoken word poets, Sarah Kay and Phil Kay, and they deliver a couple of like, and I have shown her years ago those poems, and she said, "Remember those? Like we could do it kind of like that." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then I wrote well, it was a collaborative writing, to be very clear, but like I
Sure.
wrote a framework because anytime I've done collaborative writing, it's not like I can choose one word, then you choose the next, and then you choose the next.
That would
Like
have been
got to
good. That would have been
someone's
entertaining.
someone's got to write something, and then you got to play with it.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a framework that we then workshopped, and I left complete blank of like I love you because, or I love the way you,
Sure,
or
sure.
whatever. And like so I didn't write any of that for her, obviously, about me. So yeah, it was like basically our origin story, then transition to what do we love about each other, and then the sort of wrapping up with the classical vows. And it went. The feedback we got was from people were like, even the photographer, he's like, I've done 800 plus weddings,
Gosh.
personally, and he says I've never seen anything like that, and that was the best vows I've seen. And like
Wow.
he said that like blank, like
He
they
really
just
wanted that
full.
tip.
I honestly don't think he had to. He was pretty businesslike there, or he was very like,
Yeah, he was. He was no
I
nonsense.
appreciate it. I really did, because he didn't waste time. He was like, do this, do this, do this. He was really funny enough. He was super personable on the phone, and I thought he was going to get there. And like, I pictured him hanging out and having some drinks with us and chatting. But he was like, obviously, like, his job is to be complimentary, and I appreciated he made us feel comfortable. But I maybe believe him. He said this is such an unusual thing, and some like her cape and stuff. He said, the getting published in sort of like wedding magazines, they all have a similar vibe. Weddings have such similar vibes. So anything a little bit different, he's like, I crave, because like that'll get you in the magazines and stuff. And he says, oh, there's a few of these that I'm gonna like submit for publication.
Oh, you're gonna be
with
in
your
the
parents. So
magazines. You're gonna be famous.
I might be in some wedding magazines. He said.
Wow, I can't wait to see it. Which ones? I need to
I have
make
no
sure my
idea
subscriptions
yet.
are
I have no
active.
idea. but my point, he was he seemed particularly enthralled by like, oh, I got something unique and fun, and like it's working. The vibe is working. And so and honestly, so here's a funny, and this is something I wanted to ask you, like, and I don't have no delusions about what your answer will be, but like,
Okay.
so well, first of all, like, I was not feeling emotional, like I would cry. And then when I saw Danielle and like the music swelled and she came and we did like, I started crying to the point that I was starting to get embarrassed and almost laughing. It was like, I had to stop myself from having a moment. like it could have gotten weird where I just started laughing and then not been able, and like this would have been too much. Like it was almost too much. I actually did have this gosh, like the whole thing was just super emotional, and I walk away actually feeling that was one of the most thrilling moments of the whole experience for me was that moment. But my question for you in general, whether it was like the vow, was there any stirrings of sentimentality in you aroused at any point in the wedding, perhaps over the whole weekend or in the ceremony?
Um, Pretty mild. I would say, yeah. I mean, there were stirrings. Stirrings is a good word for it. I thought, I mean, you're probably my best friend, and so, some of the things that I said in my toast, I meant. I definitely am very, very proud to see your successes, and getting married is a big success. So, I did feel some stirrings during your vows. During the climax of the ceremony, such as it was. Now that you helped me out because the weirdness of the vows made me. I was just entertained. I was more entertained than I was sentimental. Um, but I could certainly recognize your emotionality during those moments, and so I could appreciate that.
Yeah, so I imagine that
I
most
didn't
people
cry very much.
vows are from an outsider, maybe even perhaps a little boring. Like you kind of
Yes,
listen for one thing to then compliment them on later, but
definitely. Vows
but
are
people
so,
people seem
yeah, they're
people seem to
kind of
actually
obnoxious.
listen. Like yeah, there's this rote thing you have to go through.
Like
But
it's I mean it's everyone understands that, especially if you write your own vows, then it's just going to be a bunch of mushy inside jokes and like,
yeah.
oh, remember the time we looked at the stars under that tree that we carved our initials into, and everyone in the audience is just like,
Well, I
oh.
guess
But
yeah.
what you did was wonderful for the audience, because like, while you had those mushy little moments, you made them entertaining by essentially making a skit out of it. And so, I could hold back my tears by by enjoying the entertainment. And I'll also say this with respect to the vows. Like, it was blatantly apparent that Danielle was an actress. And you were not. Not that you did a bad. Not that you. Not that you did a bad job. You did not do a bad job. But Danielle, like, didn't look at the book. She had it memorized, and
I
like she was
know.
like
Like
making eye
just
contact, and like her presence was a stage presence, and your presence was, I have a
I got
participant
the
in
job
a
done.
skit. Like,
I would like to think that if you were to hear just the recording, I'd be close to on par.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that my
maybe
like
so.
physical presence, my dependence on the book, my nerves were out of control.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You were
yeah,
you were you were visibly nervous, but not to the point of ruining anything or even really negatively influencing it. It might have even had a, from an audience perspective, it might have been a slight positive, because it made me
that I'm
realize that it was
stepping outside
real.
my comfort zone. It's real. There's some degree of
Right.
charm.
Whereas
I
Danielle,
wasn't so nervous that you were like, oh God, is he gonna screw up
no,
or
no, not
anything
at
like
all.
that? Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
whereas Danielle, she did such a smooth job. It made me think, has she been married before? Like, is this her second time doing this? Because she was so cool and collected. Like, it seemed to me like this wedding was nothing for her. She was just like, this is just another
She was the
another day.
queen. Like she
Yeah.
truly can't gave off princess vibes with the veil thing and not like cape thing, like all sorts of yeah. Just I don't know. Just anyway. So you led me. You
So
referenced just then, and this was so my favorite part was the
the vows.
toasts.
Oh, the toast
The
was your
vow
favorite part.
look,
Well,
vows
let's
and toast. I just kind of put them almost together, like it
fair
is
enough.
with these performances for each other,
Performances.
and like that was just a blast. They were sincere, funny. Hats off to you. Like God, like, and I haven't re-listened to them, and I'm actually giving myself some space before listening to them. But your framing of it was hilarious, and since you took us on a roller coaster, and actually was sweet too. Like at the whole. And you really sold it with the flipping the pages and for those listening, he said I was really excited to give Daniel and Danielle a roast, and then Logan from the audience goes, no, 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 a toast, and you go, oh no, not a roast, a toast. Oh God! And you flip through the pages of things as if you can't. And here we go, nice things, and you put it on a sticky note, a tiny sticky note. But your flipping through the pages was not a short-winded. You were muttering to yourself various things like inappropriate masturbation jokes, like
Right.
all of this. Very funny, man. Very funny.
Yeah,
And
I'm glad it landed and it wasn't
oh, that is
too
really good.
weird.
No, I thought it was so funny, and I can say, as I was hearing people talk to us about all the toasts, like yours was a fan favorite. It just really, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't go on enough about those, and I can't wait to listen to them all again. I purposely am waiting maybe a couple months until I'm, like when I'm in the right headspace to relax and say, you know what, let's experience those again. That's what I want, because it'll be fresh. Because I'm like, the weird thing is, the day after the wedding, we drove to North Carolina, 9 hours. So, and I have been unpacking and unpacking. And now I started work last Thursday. So it's been a go, go, go. I haven't even had as much time as you said to like process things. Not really. I just have to like now like internalize, hey, I got work coming up, or
Yeah.
like I underestimated unpacking all those boxes. I was like, 3 days, it'll be done. Like, no, I was really wrong about that. And so it was 12:30 in the morning before the first day of work, and I'm mopping the apartment. And Danielle was like, "What are you doing?" Because it's the last. I had told myself I'm going to be completely unpacked, and I actually was around 12 or so. And the place is a night, so you have to like sweep it and then vacuum it and then and mop it one time, because it is just there's dust from all the drills and the little bits of plastic and all everywhere. So it's been a lot of action. Like we all like act and we reflect and we act and we reflect, and I do a lot of reflecting, but I've been kind of more acting recently, so, and that's okay.
Before we move totally away from the wedding, I want to ask if there was anything really really unusual or surprising, something. I'm totally a wedding outsider. I've never planned a wedding. I've only participated in like two weddings now in my adult life, which have both happened this year. Um, and so like I'm totally an outsider. But was there any kind of bizarre insider knowledge or strange fact that you stumbled upon during the entire process, either personal to your wedding or knowledge about the weddings in general that you learned?
Not a lot of surprises happened. I know like there was some website like Easy Cater that these restaurants would have us go through, and there's like an upcharge. So if you call the restaurant themselves and just book it through them, it's cheaper. And so we actually canceled our Easy Catering orders and booked it through them. So that was sort of annoying though. It was like
Yeah,
a week before
that's back to the
but that's not,
exploitation crap.
yeah.
Like,
So that stuff happened. In terms of like surprises or something I learned that I didn't expect. I mean, I wouldn't have wasted the nachos just because it's hard to make nachos, and like it's actually hard to compile them on your plate with all the toppings and be ready, like worth it. It would have been better just to stick with some extra sandwiches or different types of sandwiches or something like that. I wouldn't have bothered. That was totally, if there was a regret there, like that we didn't need to get nachos.
yeah,
I don't have a
I'll
great
chime
answer
in.
for you.
I'll chime in on that on the food
Yeah.
front. I agree with you. Although I ate 2 plates of not assorted nacho stuff, so it's not like it tasted bad. It actually was quite tasty. But in terms of
Oh yeah, they were, but they kept
managing,
baking them. Yeah,
managing it was kind of difficult
it
to.
was unwieldy.
It was
You put
unwieldy.
you grab some chips and you put them on your plate, and then it's just
Yeah, then what?
like you need to make it on something bigger, because it didn't work out like I thought, and then I would say taking pictures took longer than I thought.
That wasn't that bad. You
We
mean
really
You
Well,
mean
like even
the
just pulling us away, like the after the ceremony part, that took a little longer. Like he kept us longer. No big deal. I'm happy actually. Like if we're having this moment for the rest, we'll have these awesome photos presumably.
right?
He actually sent them like 2 days ago. We're gonna check them out tonight because we're going on
Oh,
a hike
nice,
after this, and we're gonna like
cool,
we decided not to just look at them as soon as we got them. We're like, let's like have a nice date day, which this is our date day. But I said, but first I'm doing a podcast.
nice.
So
On the photos, that's one thing that I noticed, and maybe the photographer did a good job in getting lots of candid pictures that I did not notice. But the this is typical Bennett comment, I think. But all of the posed photos felt really awkward to me. Like I wonder, I bet all of the posed photos that I'm in are gonna look really dumb
I'm
because
curious
because
about that.
I felt very awkward in all of the groomsmen pictures, and I just can't like when we were outside doing the post wedding pictures, and he had each of us come take a picture with you, like the stance that he put us in was so unnatural and weird, and like that's gonna be a hilarious. I think that's gonna be a very funny picture because it's gonna be so unnatural.
I'll like it if it's really unnatural.
Yeah,
And I'll like it if it's good. I told him when we during our sort of interview or whatever, what our desire was. I was just like, I like candid stuff. I don't care about pose that much. I mean, I want some your obligatory ones, but
yeah,
like candid, fun, cool, quirky, bizarre, odd. Like those are the things I want. And so I don't really, yeah, maybe it's a testament to it. I wonder how many good candid shots he got. And I mean, he'll send us 600 or 700 photos, like
yeah.
soon. Or we've already got them, I guess. I just haven't looked. So I'll know more tonight and like probably save some of my favorites and send them to the group.
Cool.
But yeah, yeah, it's with so much change going on and like, you know, I've not had as much time to process as I would like, but I had a blast, man. That's the thing that I'm happy about is I didn't know if I'd get time to enjoy it, but if it had only been one day, I would have been more
Ugh.
nervous because all of that emotion would have been channeled to one day. I'm just so glad. I think the if I were making a recommendation, I would say to anyone, I would say keep it small. What we did absolutely right were the major elements of keeping it small, keeping it like the open bar was obviously fun. Keeping the food, like doing it the way we wanted to do it, and then multiple days and staying together. All of that was just really. Oh, and then like the little things like having Logan draw the little cartoons of us,
Yeah,
and
that
us
was
getting the
cool.
water bottles
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
little placement seats and like the little the curly spinner fidget spinners and the light that we now have the
Yeah, that was
cursive
cool.
neon light like we have
Spelled
that in the
wrong, but
apartment in a
still
really
cool.
cool way. You'll like it in the apartment. It's really cool. Okay.
Nice.
The apartment I now have is amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Way too expensive, but I love it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna ask a little about the moving process. This is something we haven't talked about at all since you just moved essentially.
Yeah.
This is not your first big move. Moving across states or relatively across the country. But
You're
would you
right.
say would you say this one went pretty smoothly overall? I imagine it did, given how used to it you are now.
Yeah, the movers came and they found ways to upcharge. So outside of the money being more expensive and but like, and they let, I don't know if you know this, but the I'll call it the beam, the mantelpiece,
Yeah,
that looks like
a
a
railroad tie.
railroad tie. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just didn't deliver it and they're
What?
not answering me back.
What?
So now the weird thing is it was the last thing to be picked up because he put stickers on things to be delivered and they have little codes to scan, and so they had like we ran out there as they were leaving the truck and the guy like said they forgot to, and it had a sticker on it meaning it had been coded like as
Yeah.
in their inventory, so they go, oh sorry, and then they put it on the truck but it was not delivered and they've not answered a phone call, and that's about like a $200 if not more like piece. So like
Right.
I'll have to go back and look at how much I spent on it, but like I'm gonna keep pushing for that.
Yeah.
But they delivered it all. The logistics. I mean, honestly, my memory of this logistics of getting this apartment was a nightmare for a number of reasons I care not to go into. But like the company doesn't answer the phone regularly. They were doing forever with background check, blah blah blah. Just so many things to get this apartment, and then being overcharged, and then not having everything delivered, and then some plates were broken. I don't blame them for that. That stuff can happen. But like, and then the guy after, I mean, I paid over $1,000 in additional fees, and then the guy kept texting me about tips, and so I just did not tip him because I was frustrated. I was very frustrated that they charged me so much more, and then he's asking me about tips. Oh, they even charged me if it's over 75 feet. They charge $75, so they charged 150 because it's on the second floor. And who knows? I said I didn't have any proof of. I wasn't here for them to deliver it, right? So I'm just certainly not tipping.
I don't blame you. God, how annoying.
Right. So that was annoying.
That's a bad idea from a company standpoint. Like, to set your customers' expectations at one price and then overcharge them and decimate
not only that,
their expectations.
in fact, they had a not to exceed X price. So I'm like, well, how are you going to charge more? Because it said not to exceed this price. And they gave me some nonsense about, yeah, well, it's not to exceed that price in terms of cubic feet. But the thing is, there are more boxes than we anticipated. And because I asked them to give me they said, how many boxes is your apartment? Because we went through and did an inventory of everything that couldn't be boxed. And they said, by the way, I asked the guy, did I do a good job at that? I said, you did perfect at that. You did not estimate the boxes appropriately. Because when I said, I don't know how many boxes, they said 35's average. I said, I have about an average amount of stuff. And it ended up being like 55 boxes or 60. Yeah. And so, but I believe that was intentional. I think that's something that they do regularly.
Probably so. It sounds like they're 35. Just rip-off specialists.
Yeah. And so, did they come on time? Yes. Did they deliver on time? Yeah. Did they handle the items with care? I mean, presumably. Like, they wrapped things like they didn't need to be wrapped in tons of.
Yeah, I remember they did that with when I had.
So they were a professional business, but like they.
I would say though, how many broken things did you have?
Well, that plate thing was actually upside down when they delivered it, so I think it fell in the truck, and then they just didn't flip it over.
So one broken plate, one missing.
No, most of it. I had to replace. I would say like nine broken plates. The whole thing was basically
nine broken plates, one missing railroad tie, and $1,000 extra charge. That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I would estimate that as bad. In my recent move, I didn't use movers. But I packed myself. I did have movers carry boxes, both out of my apartment into the storage bins, out of the storage bins into my new apartment. But like, I only had one broken plate and no missing items. And so like, I think I did a better job than your movers. I would not tip your movers either. I would be actually pretty pissed about your moving situation if I had to pay all that extra money and then had a box of broken plates and a missing item.
Oh yeah, I'm
didn't
frustrated.
return my calls.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
I mean, I'm gonna keep calling, but I don't.
What happens if you ask for a refund? Do they come grab all your stuff and move it back to Florida?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. That's why they're not gonna answer the they're gonna disappear on me. I mean, I don't know what else to do, but that's why I went ahead and bought a new floating shelf entertainment system thing. I was just like. I'm not going to wait and see what happened. That thing is, I mean, who knows where that thing's at, so. Yeah. But I've decided, look, in the grand scheme of things, I got a lot to concentrate on, and I'm going to continue to call them, once a week kind of thing for a while. And I'm not going to let that, embitter me, because I have a tendency to let something like that, oh, this is an injustice, and I elevate it to this. But it occupies so much of my headspace that I don't have time to give. Yeah. So just in terms of me calculating my happiness, sometimes I'm going to have to eat some injustice. And I think that's true for everyone, by the way.
Yeah,
so
sure.
And that's not okay. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying
it's just the way
it's just the way it is. It is what it is.
Yeah. Is there anything else to say about the move? At this point,
I'm just thrilled with the apartment. I really want to show it off to you.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I'm gonna be
super comfortable. It's the best apartment I've ever lived in terms of not necessarily cool factor like my downtown one, in
Yeah.
Florida that time with a brick wall and it was older. It was just like the
Right.
cool factor was off the charts and the location was for that area off the charts.
Right.
I have a great area, but this is the most comfortable. Like it's vaulted ceilings, it's new, everything's pristine.
Is the
I
second
love the
floor the top floor?
No, there's 4 floors. So, but
So
what's
you're in
good
the
is
middle.
no one's beneath me, and no one is to one side of me because I'm near the staircase that's not used often. So
When you say no one's beneath you, you mean for the
there are
moment,
garages.
or
There are garages underneath me.
I see.
So I don't
That's
have to
cool.
like I work out, and so I don't have to. I was actually concerned because I jump up and down and do a lot of things.
Right.
That would be obnoxious. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
5:45 in the morning. I'm like stomping
Stomping around.
around.
Yeah, that would be
But
really
now I don't have to
annoying.
worry about that. And the wall I have, I don't share a wall with anyone because it's a stairwell, and so
Nice.
and the porch is like this. This is the first time my ceiling above me is not just like it's covered completely, and it stormed really bad, and I walked out while the wind was blowing toward us, and I was not getting wet. I don't know how it was so good, but it's actually a big porch for a porch of a to be clear of an apartment
Yeah, of
porch.
an
It's
apartment,
big,
yeah.
and it's framed nicely, so there's lots of shade. And I just was like, this is the best porch I've ever had. It's just so I'm thrilled with all of that. I mean, I'm paying a premium price, so I'm getting the premium product I wanted. It's got an island with a sink in it, so that's a big deal too. It's got a big refrigerator. Everything's just nice about it. So
Yeah, I want to see it. I'll be in your new state in about a week and a half, but not in your city. Unfortunately, I've got a work trip that
there's
popped
no
up.
way to arrange a.
I don't think so.
Well, we'll talk more offline about that. So.
Yeah. What about your job? How many days have you had actually in the new job
So
now with students
Thursday and
back?
Friday were two new teacher orientation days, and then next week is full just teacher professional work days.
So you
we
haven't
just
begun classes yet.
no August
Okay.
18th actually be the first day with kids. So
So there's
a
not,
little
there's probably
while.
not all that much to talk about at this
I'll
point.
say this, yeah, no, it's just they were incredibly kind. Everyone leads with their best foot forward, so it's hard to tell anything quite yet because in my old school there's two teacher orientation days that I attended as a mentor sometimes and helped even collaborate to help construct. And like everyone like some of the language and the rhetoric's the same, like, hey, we're kind of like a family here and everyone's kind and just reach out. And then also here's too much information about everything and here's a checklist and all the available resources. It's kind of like the first days of class when you get a syllabus and you walk away going, oh my gosh, I feel a little overwhelmed. But really, you're going to unpack it over a year and it's going to be fine.
Right.
So that's my thoughts on the matter. But the difference between this place and my current place was that whole leading with kindness thing. Like it seems to me that this kindness is for the most part like sincere and true. Like I got paired with a mentor yesterday and he was very kind and he's only been here a year and he was pretty forthcoming and truthful. Like basically I trust him. He wasn't just giving the company line. And he said,
Right.
no, I'll tell you, everyone here truly, sincerely, it's a nice place. Everyone is kind. Everyone is. This place is as it purports itself to be. Because my only suspicion is my previous place purported itself
they
to
said
be
that, yeah.
said the same thing and delivered it with. I mean, it's a sophisticated school that delivered the message convincingly, and then you would start to understand that is not true. Well, this is also a sophisticated school delivering that message convincingly.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Well, time will tell, I guess.
time will tell. And my hopes, there are small indicators that it seems to be true, like in a deeper sense. And also, any institution is going to have its warts, and I'll find those out as we go along. But like, that's okay. I'm not in a hurry to find out the warts because I got a lot of other things to concentrate on, and I'm excited about it. Like I'm thrilled, and I'm excited that I'm not even incredibly nervous yet. I will get incredibly nervous. That's just my nature. But right now, like I'm just happy to like be getting to know colleagues and stuff. So.
Is there going to be anything different or unusual about your class setup or the way, the nitty gritty of your teaching job? Like, or will it all
Yes,
be kind of similar to what you're used to?
it will be similar. Okay, no, the two things. I'm teaching a ninth grade class, world literature, pretty basic. Read books, write papers. I mean, yes, it's different than that, but that's a simplification of any English classes: reading literature and writing about it. I'm teaching a composition class for 10th grade, and that is so. There's only like one
Is that
book
the
we
first
read.
time you've taught a composition
I would
class?
argue that AP Language and Composition is, well, it
It's
has
the same
composition
thing.
in the name, but like, yeah, it's shorter informational text and writing, a lot more writing
Well, I get
intensive.
to
And
write debate essays again.
honestly, if I am given the opportunity to introduce that, I think that might be a something coming your way. And it will also be a 10th grade mixed bag of students. So my point is
What
that
does that
like
mean?
AP,
Oh, does that mean I might
it,
get bad ones or good ones?
you might get students who are not quite as talented. If you're in
I
AP
see.
Lang as a junior and
Oh, I
senior,
see.
you
Yeah, I
know.
get you.
Whereas if I just have like, yeah, you might just get a student who's low achieving or something like that. I don't know. I don't know though. I don't know yet, and I don't know if that'll be an opportunity. But there's a chance if it's like writing a bunch and we do some sort of rhetoric unit or something like that, then I will certainly be pushing some debate essays. So I really will, and that's exciting. Another thing is like, and I don't have my schedule yet or anything like that, but well, I don't have my own classroom. It's a shared space, so there will be times I'm like I have
Oh,
a
that's
desk
annoying.
area. So I
That's
have
pretty
my
annoying.
own. There's an English teacher like
Where are you gonna put your phonograph?
well, there's an English teacher lounge, and I
Oh,
get a desk, and that desk, but like also every other teacher will be in there, and you know, a bunch of people working at a desk. I don't know. We'll see how the vibe. That's all kind of unknown how that'll unfold.
mm.
But that's how actually the previous school was too, and but it works out where there's either an empty classroom or no one's teaching. And let's say ideally all my classes are in the same classroom, and so that means yeah, sure, someone else is in one other period or maybe two other periods, but not all of them. Then I don't have to leave during a period that it's empty. Maybe. I have not been assigned duties and things like that yet either. So I assume that's going to come where there's like a lunch duty or a whatever duty.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. But right, and also they've not hit me up for like running the student forum or government or whatever. They haven't hit me up to do additional things, which I'm pretty happy about, but also curious about, because in independent school world, you just get asked to do other things, and so the fact that I haven't been asked, I'm waiting for it to like just go ahead and ask me. If you're gonna ask me so I can wrap my head around it. I don't want to be the
I
day
mean,
before classes asking to run a program, you know.
I mean, maybe they don't
So
do that with first,
that's what I've
first year.
heard, is that they try not to ask first. But I know there are two other English teachers who are going to be new this year, and one is helping out with debate, and one is doing something else. I forget. So I'm like, huh? They have not. They're both doing something, and I'm not. And like, okay, we'll just see what happens. So, because I want to be I also want to demonstrate my value, right? Like I'm new, I've got a reputation to earn, and I look forward to doing that. And so, I'm gonna invest in like going to games and
Right, that's
things
your
like that
big
early
thing.
on.
Like this is go time for you,
It is
right? Because
absolute go time. It's the beginning. It's the first thing, like we talked about. So,
right, you have to like gain all of your momentum and all of your cred and probably a big bulk of your social capital. Like this is the time to earn it, so that you can hoard it or spend it as as needed later. Like
oh, you're
this is it.
totally right. In fact, and this this will sound, but so I was emailing my department chair, and she seems awesome. She really does, and she had told me um, she was an assistant director to a play in town, and that was Tech Week, so she was really busy. And sorry if she didn't respond to emails. And I'm like, oh, what's the play? Like Danielle and I love supporting the arts, and she's in the arts too. So we bought tickets and went to see that show, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And it's cool that my department chair is in the arts. Work and like it also helps. It's not like I'm trying to manipulate anyone, but it was just cool to be able to support her, make a connection there. Like there's a lot of reasons, and I love going to plays, so it was like a win-win-win. And like I'm just gonna go do every opportunity like that presents itself. It's like yeah, I'm going. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
so
I look
yeah,
forward to hearing all of your about the area that you're in and all the stuff that's there.
I'm walking distance to a Whole Foods and like a whole lot of like kind of swanky restaurants and places to eat. So Yeah, I went to a delicious Mexican restaurant called Chuy's, and it was fun. It's probably someplace we'll go when you come. So it's neat that it's all walking distance. That's
Yeah,
exciting to be in a
I
cool
like
spot.
that. I like having things walking distance as well. That is really
Everything
nice.
is around me is super new, clean, and well manicured, and like kind of the kind of place Adam would look at and scoff and be like, it's suburbia run amok. Like it is
Right, right.
unbelievably. You like the criticism would be that it's kind of soulless and like basic white girl like because like they're gonna like there's a fountain and there's like everything's pristine and feels like it was built in the last 2 or 3 years, and it feels and you know what, and it feels safe and I like it. Like I'm not going to be ashamed of that.
How
But
far do
there's
you
right
have to
there's
go? How far do you have to go for hiking, decent hiking and stuff? You said you're going hiking after this,
there's
so
one 23 minutes away. I was looking at top tier, but there's like really good hiking like 40 minutes away, and a decent one 20 minutes away, I think. So and that's like 40 minutes away is getting into like mountain territory hiking, like really good hiking, I think. So better hiking than I had access to in all of Florida,
well,
kind of thing.
definitely, yeah. There's no mountain in all of Florida.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
even if you go to the Everglades or something like that in Florida,
yeah, it's true.
that's
It's
like
still
limited in how great it is to
right.
me. So
How is it? I mean, you said that you can walk to different restaurants and stuff, but just for casual walk, is it a very walkable area? Like your
so
previous place in Florida, I found to be probably the least walkable, like the least enjoyable walkable area of places that you've lived that
So
I
on one
remember
side
anyway.
of me, yeah, I'm gonna oversimplify here, but let's just say you have your restaurants and beautiful area that's walking, but like also that's parking lot and shopping center stuff. So you couldn't do that, say, with your shirt off or like whatever. Um, and then on the other side of me, there's some woods that I have not found any trails, and I've been very disappointed because I was like, God, this would be a great place for some trails, but it's so overgrown that you can't
Oh,
like no like there's just not going to be walking in that. And then on the kind of the last side of me would be these suburban nice houses with the neighborhood's so new, and these are like zero lot lines almost with
yeah, like a
perfectly
subdivision.
manicured front subdivision that are it's
Yeah,
big though, like you can't walk all of it in one walk. So that's your sort
that's the
of
walk area.
that's your walk area. There's a parking deck near me that like we started in the previous place when the wedding was coming up and we were trying to get in really good shape, but like it was too hot out and wasn't enough shade. We walked in that parking deck and actually learned to really enjoy it. We even jogged in it because it was surprisingly the wind once it like a little breeze will really carry through a small parking deck. It was not this like I thought it would be still and like terrible, but it was really quite pleasant. And there's a parking deck here as well that we've been. If you let's say it's noon and you want to go on a walk and it's just so hot out, like that's if you're literally just looking to move your feet, like that's the place to do it. But obviously, as far as aesthetically, that's pretty
Pretty,
low
yeah,
in
pretty low.
freaking parking. That's maybe the lowest you could get. And then the suburban like these neighborhoods are really nice, but again, even though they have these trees, you can imagine these like planted trees in the last couple of years, and like even though they're like they're maybe like 20 feet tall, and so they're not casting much shade, and it doesn't feel like to me an ideal walking spot is you're in this trail in which the
Yeah,
woods
definitely.
you're completely shaded, like that's ideal to me,
Yes.
and that's so I don't have access to that right now.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing, but like
I mean,
it's in terms of walking, it's pretty good. I'd put it up there with my place in when I lived in St. Pete.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that area. So like that was nice walking, but also limited, and that was more city. This can be it can feel like the city if you want to go over to the restaurants, and it feels like the um, suburban whatever if you walk in the neighborhoods. So yeah. I'm also right across from the gym, and since my mat hasn't come yet, I walk to my gym, which is fancy, swanky, nice. Because it's funny how apartments have changed a little over the year. They used to have a nice clubhouse and a pool and a workout space. Well, people still want their workout space, and but that's even changed where they have more bikes and like more like dynamic like place for like people who do CrossFit and a place for people who do so it has like different elements and different workout equipment, and then it still has a nice pool, but clubhouses, no one cares about those anymore.
Yeah.
And they need to be functional, almost game rooms, if anything. And
Right.
so there
Right.
is like a game, like there's a ping pong table, a pool table.
Nice.
Yeah, skee ball. They have freaking skee ball we can
I
play.
don't care about skee ball. Ping pong is the real winner.
Yeah, it's a nice indoor, thing. So we'll get to play that. There's an outdoor chimney just sitting out there. That's really
Love
nice.
outdoor chimneys.
With some Edison bulbs strung all around.
Love Edison
strategically.
bulbs strung all around.
There's a rooftop lounge. That's nice. So
Those are okay.
I love rooftops.
I would never buy a house without a roof.
Yeah, so and walking to that gym right across the street has been easy for me because I might have the closest apartment to the gym. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I think so. So yeah.
Cool. I can't wait to visit. I don't know when we'll be able to arrange that. I'm not sure. You still haven't visited me here either, so.
Yeah, no, I'm really want to get out there. I want to figure all that out. So I'll send you my school calendar at some point. We'll figure all that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go hiking right now.
Sounds good. Yeah, good to catch up on all of your events, and that explains our podcast gap. So
Yeah.
you'll probably be pretty busy with the school year starting, but maybe we'll try to keep up our podcasting schedule, and I'll have to get back on to like actually doing podcast work and coming up with some interesting things to talk about, because it's been a long time. We haven't done superpowers and drawbacks in a long time.
Yeah, everything's at play, right?
We need a good mind your morals. Like, yeah, we need
so much to do.
Yeah, so we'll take care of that.
All right, man.
All right, that's the end of our podcast.
Goodbye.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Bye.
It's over.